I think a lot of physicians in the United States have burnout or are incredibly dissatisfied because we recognize that medicine in the United States is beholden to the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. And in the practice that I'm in now, I am not. I don't really and truly want to believe that it's financial gain, but at the end of the day, there's something inside of me that's saying that it's, because of the amount of money that's being exchanged related to the vaccine programs, that perhaps on some level we've become blinded to the safety associated with these products, and we're not doing the due diligence on behalf of our patients to the extent that I would like to see. Again, let's do real safety studies where the placebo is inert, and let's really and truly talk to patients or parents after they've had an adverse event and report them instead of being so dismissive, so that we can get a collection of data that will allow us to really and truly identify, what are the true adverse events related to a vaccine, and, how can we better do informed consent? Take that to a whole nother level so that we are, in fact, not putting the adverse
We're talking about and looking at OAMF's current legislation that they have introduced, House Bill 193, regarding the medical freedom for healthcare workers. Now, we've seen several states, over a dozen states across the country, already implement similar legislation, which would essentially reverse this current mandate, which requires medical professionals to be vaccinated to maintain their employment. I'd like to welcome Dr. Daniel Neides. Thank you for taking the time to join us, sir. I know you have an extremely busy schedule.
Thank you, Spiro. Glad to be here.
Can you give our viewers a little bit of a background about your medical history as a professional, as a doctor?
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to go to Ohio State University for medical school, and then I trained at Riverside Methodist Hospitals in family medicine. And for the first 17 years of my practice of medicine, it was a traditional family doctor, seeing patients of all ages, treating both acute and chronic disease, as I was taught through the use of pharmaceuticals. There's a drug for every bug and a pill for every ill. And then in 2013, after I had gone back to school to get an MBA, within the Cleveland Clinic, I was promoted to Chief Operating Officer for the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. And that was back in 2013. At the end of 2017, I had made the decision to leave the Cleveland Clinic and start my own practice, because I felt, when you're working for a large healthcare organization, there are certain boundaries, if you will, and I say that in quotes, that there's a conflict when you work in a large healthcare organization, constantly trying to promote downstream revenue for subspecialists, as well as recognizing that the model is really see patients, find the best pharmaceutical, and get them on their way. And I don't want to think that it's on a conscious level, but maybe it is. But we almost keep people trapped in a chronic disease paradigm, because that's how we generate revenue. If I get somebody better and send them on their way, well, potentially I'm losing a client that could be paying me on a regular basis to manage, and I say that in quotes, their disease. Rather, what I want to do is have people achieving a much higher quality of life so that they can remove potentially the pharmaceuticals and the side effects that come with that, and really and truly promote a much healthier lifestyle.
I'm sure you are well aware of the current mandate that is in place requiring medical personnel such as staff, nurses, to receive the flu shot every year to maintain their employment. Now, as a doctor, as a medical professional, what is your position?
I'll start with the position on vaccines. I am absolutely not anti-vax, but what I am is the pro-safest vaccines possible. And I feel that in the United States, there have been, whether they were unintended or intended consequences of legislation that occurred in 1986 basically absolving the pharmaceutical industry of any adverse events related to vaccines, that has led to what I believe is the development of potentially unsafe vaccines for at-risk individuals. So let me clarify that position a little bit further. There's no other area in the pharmaceutical industry that I am aware of where pharma is absolved from any liability related to adverse events. So in other words, if I took a pharmaceutical, a drug, and had it, what the government decided to do was basically develop something called a vaccine court, which would allow patients who suffered injury related to vaccines to petition the court for potential monetary return for the damages that resulted from their vaccine exposure. And to date, we, because I say we as taxpayers, that's who's paying the bill, we've paid $3.8 billion with a B dollars to people who have been injured by vaccines. And so, to me, that is a significant that the vaccines themselves have impurities that, again, for at-risk individuals who have trouble detoxifying, can contribute to the development of chronic disease. And I also believe that the heavy metals like mercury and aluminum that are in some of our vaccines, and the reason that they put the mercury and aluminum into vaccines, what we really and truly should be doing, I think, for all is having very clean vaccines that don't have the impurities, that don't have the metals in them. But as a consumer in the United States, I want choice. So you can make the vaccines the way you've been making them, and those people who want to self-select for them can get them. But if I want to pay more money for what I, as a consumer, believe to be a safer product, then give me the option to do that. Now it comes full circle to the rest of the conversation, which has to do with obligating or mandating employees of healthcare organizations or other industry to getting vaccines. And to me, this is an incredibly slippery slope. My argument is really and truly based on informed consent and the Geneva Convention. So I'm going to start with the Geneva Convention first.
Do not miss the full 50-minute interview with Dr. Dan Neides that you will not see anywhere else, as Dr. Neides tackles the topics that the mainstream media is afraid to cover, exclusively at newsbud.com.
And wow, did I get backlash from, people challenging the very science behind what I was saying, to death threats.